So that's what they do. They started implementing, capital gains tax or taxable events anytime you spend Bitcoin, when Bitcoin in its pure form isn't meant for that. It incentivizes us here in the West to see it as an asset, which here in the West it does make sense as an asset because of the US's
Hmm.
dollar reserve currency status. The good thing about here in the US is there's still a very good body of law protecting. You still actually have uh, all the rights that this country was founded on, but you have to know how to access them. If the law is there, it's hidden under layers and layers of
Yeah,
books and law libraries and it's there. It's like they have it there, but they know 99% of people aren't ever going to go and look there.
exactly. Shout out to the Orange Manufacturing Group. They helped me with my logo design, and you know that I'll be ordering their premium hardwood sign and lightning keychain. Accessories are curated from a selection of durable traditional materials built to last. Use the Geyser Fund link in the show notes to take advantage of their trust minimal process, or to save 5%, go to omg21btc.com. That's omg21btc.com and use code AAB21Q. The congestion tax, are you subject to that as well? I see it all over the internet.
Yeah, so here on Long Island, it's two different counties than the city, so we don't have that here. Um, Believe me, government's going to do what it's going to do. They tried to implement speed zone cameras here, like they have all over New York City, but the people pushed back very strongly, and they had to scrap it. So they're gonna try to get away with as much as they can. I don't know what is going on in the city, but people just roll over it and allow themselves to be, for to keep it PG. They just allow themselves to be done with whatever, the government wants to do. So yeah, now they have a congestion tax. So basically, anyone who drives in the city, wherever you are, you're going to be getting charged for, various rates and fees just to drive. So this is going to drive an insane amount of people into the subway system, which is
Yeah.
already kind of a disaster. It's not safe. There's a lot of really bad policy going on in the city. So luckily, where I am in New York, I don't know, Long Islanders, we just kind of don't tolerate or put up with a lot of nonsense from government. But I mean, but don't get me wrong, they try to do the same here, but it's a very different culture. Even though we're so close, we're, again, probably 40-minute drive. Uh, it's two different worlds completely. So
You know what? I'm so sorry, but I saw a video of a guy on a scooter. Stay calm. Going across the bridge to avoid
yep, I
pain.
saw the same video.
I'm sorry. I thought it was the funniest thing. Like,
Oh yeah, you also have a lot of different people, uh, not even using cars or regular motorcycles, but these little scooters, because we have such an influx of, I guess, new cultures that have come into the city, and we're not they're bringing in, whatever transportation. They're getting around by any means necessary. So if you're ever in New York, you're gonna see a lot of funny things. You're in Switzerland, right?
yeah, but
Yeah.
I'm born and raised in Toronto, in Canada, which
Okay, so
is,
yeah, Toronto's a big city, so I guess
yeah.
you'll probably see a lot of funny things over there too.
But I left in like 2008,
Oh
and
wow.
I've been back like once a year ever since. But I don't live there anymore, and so where I live, it's super duper calm. Like people are chill, very respectful. There's scooters everywhere. People use their e-bikes and stuff, but New York is like a different place. I've been there a few times, and because of Bitcoin and because of like these changes in policies, I've been paying closer attention, and I have to say, like, that spirit is just amazing. Like, just by any
Yeah.
means necessary.
Yeah, you're gonna find a lot of different personalities in New York. So, and I'm sure not everyone in the city is fond of all these new policies, but I guess the if enough people don't make their voice heard or try to push back,
Yeah.
they're just going to do whatever they want. So,
Yeah.
we have I don't know if by you they have red light camera tickets, but over here, basically, on Long Island, they did get away with a red light camera ticket, which basically, if the stoplight starts to show yellow or signal you to slow down and you slightly roll through it, these cameras will they'll capture a picture of your license plate and bam, you got a $150 ticket mailed to you
Whoa.
just for rolling through a light. So they were able to get away with that here, but New York takes it to a different level where if you're within they justify like certain zones, maybe a school zone or something, but now it's
Yeah.
just all over. It's gone beyond the school zone, where if you go over 10 miles an hour within like a certain area, bam, you're also getting another, 50, $80 or $100 ticket in the mail. So if the zone says 25 miles an hour and you're going 36 miles an hour, which is, if anyone who drives knows that it's very, it's a joke
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
be ticketed for going 1 mile an hour over that area. And they justify it that it's for safety, but that's nonsense. It's just a shakedown. It's another money grab for these, over indebted municipalities. So they're desperate. Well, as we know in the Bitcoin,
Yeah.
community, every government, everyone's beyond indebted. So the government doesn't create anything of value. So what do they have to do is leech on parasite onto the working person and find ways to get into your wallet somehow. So they come up with all these clever
Exactly.
ways, speed cameras, red light cameras, whatever it is, they're gonna try to get away with. And if they don't get pushback, well, then it's kind of our fault. So yeah, New York, that's just the beginning of the things they're trying to roll out over there because New York City has so much debt. So it'll be
Yeah.
interesting to see what else they come up with, and if at any point, hopefully, people start to kind of push back on these things. But the culture over
Well, you
there,
sound
I
like
don't know.
you're ripe and ready for the pushback, and you do most definitely sound like a Bitcoiner. Ed, can you introduce yourself to the audience, to me as well, and let us know how you got into Bitcoin?
Yeah, so my name is Ed Giron. Been in Bitcoin now. I guess, class of 2020. So before Bitcoin, I did work in traditional I had opportunity to work in traditional finance for a little while as an investment advisor. But even let's take it before that. I have a lot of experience in small businesses, whether family businesses. And I guess the way I arrived to Bitcoin is Michael Saylor talks about Bitcoin's a need to know basis. So what that means is basically at some point you're going to realize that you're working harder and harder, and you're not really seeing the fruits of your labor because the money's dying. But at that, in my early days, right after college,
Yeah.
I didn't know anything about economics, anything. I didn't actually study finance in college. I actually went to school to be a teacher, a phys ed teacher. But right out of college, I started helping in family business and really seeing how the entrepreneur works. And for whatever reason, I just noticed as years went by that you know th- things just kept getting further away price wise. So whether it's trying to buy a house or rent or various different things that we everyday life, even food, it wasn't as noticeable as recently. But I started to get an idea. So then divine intervention. I don't know. I went down the rabbit hole of Robert Kiyosaki, Mike Maloney, Jim Rickards, like the hard
Yeah. Yeah.
asset
Yeah.
gold bug guys. Those
Yeah.
were really my first exposure to, I guess, the world of like finance and investing. Those were my main guys. I had watched Bitcoin in 2017, but because I was so TradFi minded at that time, I kind of just saw it as a complete speculation. I tried to understand it, but it was very difficult at the time. For whatever reason, I just kind of watched it, and I saw it go from 3,000 to 20,000, that late December, and then collapse back down. So I was like, whoa, it dodged a bullet there. Good thing I didn't get
Yeah.
involved. But then, uh, as we got closer to 2020, just the info, was devouring all this information. And it's kind of like a snowball effect. And then I was able to arrive at Bitcoin again this time. And I'm like, all right, this time I'm actually really going to try to understand this. So I had actually found it late February of 2020. And it was actually the funny thing, it was through an investment newsletter. This guy, Palm Beach Confidential, it's like a high-end newsletter, has all different types of, I guess, investment strategies, whether it's like private placements or like getting involved in like potential stocks that are going to be doing well. But they had a crypto corner, so that was my like foot back into the crypto world, and that covered everything. But it did give like a background in Bitcoin. Ironic thing is I found Bitcoin through a Shipcoin newsletter, but it's
Yeah, nice,
yeah,
nice, nice.
yeah, it's a funny story. But yeah, I did even before that I did get an opportunity to work in traditional finance and, as an investment advisor. Uh, all traditional finance products, mutual funds. Um, you know, if you want to ask, yeah, I guess if you want to ask me about like that world, but I guess that's kind of the overview of how I arrived to Bitcoin.
Yeah, Mike Maloney, The Hidden Secrets of Money.
Great
I still
series.
go back. Oh, totally. I still go back and watch that when the way he just breaks down what inflation is and stuff is just, or another scene that stands out for me is when all of the US dollars come back onshore and what happens. Like
Yeah.
that is so, so good for an understanding of what's wrong with our system.
Yeah, that's why I'm really grateful for those guys, like, because they really laid the foundation for me. Even though I mean, Mike Maloney, he actually was a Bitcoiner early in like 2013. He was buying
Yeah.
Bitcoin. He's not a full-on Bitcoiner anymore. He's open to other tokens for various reasons. But even Rickards, like these guys, really laid the foundation for me
Yeah.
on how the money system's completely manipulated, broken, however you want to term it, but they laid that foundation. So by the time I arrived at Bitcoin and started really learning about it, that foundation is what totally opened my eyes to, wow, this is, much better than all these old world assets, and this is the, I guess, the way forward. And the more you learn about it, you know how much better it is for the human race. It's more than an asset. What I really feel about it is this is like kind of the human race's chance to really separate money and state. So,
Yeah.
and I know here in the West, a lot of us look at it as an asset, but it's so much more than that. So yeah,
Yeah.
these guys really laid that foundation for me. So as much as, I know Rickards is not a Bitcoiner and all these, a lot of them aren't hardcore Bitcoiners, but without that knowledge base, it would have been hard to understand Bitcoin at a
Yeah,
deeper level.
definitely. It's when I hear you say that, I don't know if you are familiar with Greg Foss. He's
Yeah,
Canadian. Yeah, yeah.
love Greg
And
Foss.
once he said a few years ago that Peter Schiff is like 99.999% of the way there. He just needs that like extra edge. Like he's diagnosed the problem perfectly, but he's reached the wrong solution.
Yeah, that's another name. Peter Schiff. He was another one that, again,
Yeah.
gives you the problem. For whatever reason, you just can't see the light at the end of the tunnel, which is Bitcoin.
Yeah.
It's hilarious. But yeah, I used to listen to his podcast a lot, and he would just paint it so perfectly with government spending and all these things, and it all makes sense. Like every 90 years. So yeah, Greg's right. He's 99.9% there. I think his ego is too big. He just can't let himself admit he was wrong, but what can we do?
Exactly.
Yeah, that's one good thing that I've been able to do is kind of I can listen to people who make valid points and not
Hmm.
discard them completely. I think it's part of the process to really understand what's going on. You're gonna have to listen to people that you disagree with on certain things. So there's a lot of really good macro people that may not be Bitcoiners, but I'll still listen to
Yeah.
them on a macro perspective. But yeah, you got to listen to a lot of different voices. So Shifty Pete, definitely
Shifty
another
Pete.
one
Yeah. Yeah,
that helped me.
definitely.
Yeah.
So you mentioned before that you worked as a financial advisor, and I know that now with Sovereign, it's about putting companies on a Bitcoin business standard.
Yeah.
So, what is a Bitcoin business standard for anyone watching who doesn't know? And how do consultants at Sovereign and how does Sovereign go about doing that?
Yeah. So I think if you're running a business at some point, you made the biggest risk or decision of your life to maybe leave the comfort of a regular job or a 9 to 5 steady paycheck or whatever it is, and you decided that you had a gift or an ability to produce a good or service that you wanted to introduce to the world, whatever it was. It could be construction, building houses, painting houses, you know, uh, food industry, whatever it is. You made a decision at some point to take that huge risk whether and put up capital from your pocket, raise capital from family, friends, however it is, and you decided to
Yeah.
start a business. Uh, if this was, over the last 30, 40 years, we've had a very favorable environment to do that because we've had a period of declining interest rates. So when you make that risk and you're putting in all that blood and sweat, tears, that, sweat equity into your business, and then eventually you find some success. You're bringing in profits, your revenues, you're building a customer base, you know, things are going well, but it's never exactly easy to run a business. But as time has progressed, more recent years, we've seen an insane amount of, I guess, just government recklessness with, deficit spending and all these things, which have dramatically affected how businesses operate because the value of the cash, their cash flows are being eroded insanely. And a lot of businesses are finding problems, whether it's, inputs on materials they need to buy from around the world.
Yeah.
Everything has gone through the roof. Employees, you're seeing, and I'm speaking more from what I've seen, because
Mm-hmm.
again, I do have experience in a lot of, different business. I saw a lot of people growing up that came from South America or even Europe, and they built great, successful businesses, found ways to provide an incredible, good or
Yeah.
service to the marketplace. But as time has gone by with the erosion of the money, these people are really struggling at the times in their lives when they shouldn't be struggling. As
Mm-hmm.
they spent their whole working lives to hopefully, you get to an age where you're close to retirement or ready for retirement, and you think now it's time to maybe take it easy and let your business kind of maybe step away, or
Yeah.
just you put in so much time over the years, and now it's, you're at a point where maybe you want to take a break, but because the money's dying, you now actually have to work twice, three, maybe three times as hard as you did when you first took the risk building the business,
Yeah.
because you're trying to make mathematical, sense out of something that's out of your control, which is the control of the money. So,
Mm-hmm.
so all these businesses that are, find themselves struggling, whether it's employees being unhappy because they think it's the business or the business owner that doesn't pay them enough, when it's really the money's devaluing. So the
Yep.
business owner can only afford to pay you what, what makes sense to them as a business owner, because they still need to see a profit after they, put in all their expenses. They need to see a profit. So, but the employees, a lot of times, they may not be happy because they can't see the fruits of their labor, whether it's buying that first time home, starting a family,
Yep.
because all these things are just getting so ridiculously expensive. So it kind of creates like a very difficult dynamic right now for business owners. So a Bitcoin business standard would be the people that they need, it's that need to know basis. Something is wrong.
Yeah.
My pocket's getting decimated. Things are harder than they've ever been.
Mm-hmm.
And this goes for people even just starting a business today. It's the same concept. Whether you've been in business, starting a business, the denominator is going against you, and that's the dollar. So that need to know basis starts to take you different angles, different rabbit holes. Uh, Luckily, some people arrive at Bitcoin the same way we all do, like whether it's word of mouth, or you see a podcast, or some way, somehow you arrive at Bitcoin, and it's like a vortex that just sucks you in. So if you're a business owner
Yeah.
and you start to see there's something out of my control, but I may have the solution, something, you know, I may not fully understand it, but what I'm hearing makes sense. I feel it in my gut that that's going to be something that's going to potentially help me supplement all the things that are, going wrong, or difficult, running the business. So I think a Bitcoin business standard is you start maybe slow. Maybe you just put whatever excess cash flows you have into a small percentage of Bitcoin, but the more you
Yeah.
learn, you realize it just keeps sucking you in more, where you get to the point where you start accumulating a little bit of Bitcoin, but then you end up all the cash flows in Bitcoin, employees paid in Bitcoin, try to get your input somehow from dollars to Bitcoin. It's so many different avenues, but I think at some point, if you are having a hard time running a business, you need to look at, a strategy that you've never done before. 'Cause if you do
Yep.
what you've always done, you're going to get what you've always gotten. The only difference is this time, because the money's being so manipulated, what worked in the past isn't going to work now, or it's probably going to be much worse going forward. So yeah, I think so that a Bitcoin business standard is just basically a business that understands there's a problem. it's desperately looking for solutions. Hopefully arrives at Bitcoin. That's where we come in. We try to get out and educate people on how Bitcoin could be an anchor to their business and greatly improve their chances of success by tying their business to the hardest money the human race has ever seen.
Yeah.
Supplementing, if it's an asset, it's whether you see it as money or as an asset, it doesn't matter. It's all its properties work together to lift you up. Whether as someone who doesn't involve themselves or try in Bitcoin or try to change their strategy somehow, it's just going to be a slow death. As Michael Saylor talks about, he had the successful
Yeah.
company, built it all that time, and he was doing everything he possibly could. But at some point, you realize you're either going to die a slow death or you go for that Hail Mary. And obviously, we've seen what's happened with MicroStrategy and Michael Saylor. So that, people watching that running a business, it kind of shows you the potential that it has to help you as a business owner.
I think something that's common amongst entrepreneurs and business owners is you put yourself out there, you put yourself on the line, you do whatever you can to control a maximum number of variables. And there's something deep inside you that says, there's no way I'm going to let someone else's policy mess up what I have going on. And I think that like when you get to that point, Bitcoin makes that much more sense because it's like you said, it's like a Hail Mary. It's this thing that cannot be devalued because like, I don't know, Jerome Powell has to, decrease interest rates and therefore more money is going to or more currency is going to flood the market and therefore your purchasing power is going to decrease. Like it's that thing that just supports that drive that most entrepreneurs and business owners have.
Yeah, there's a compartment in the brain that separates them a little bit from the pack. You're
Yeah.
already
Yeah.
you're already a risk taker. You're already scrappy and
Yeah, definitely.
so you already have that base mentality. So when hurdles start coming your way or difficulties, you get in that same fight mode where you're like, all right, I got to figure something out. Otherwise, it's just like giving up. So the beautiful thing is we can't control what they do with the money. We can't control what they do with their policies, and they're going to do what they're going to do. But we can look over to this, invention or discovery
Or
that
creation or
that
yeah.
that is something that the human race has never seen, and it's something that can't be manipulated, can't be controlled, you know, and you realize you have to, go in that direction. So yeah, it's you have the foundation there. When something's wrong, you got to get ready to do something. But if you start looking at traditional solutions during these times, it's not, your chances of success aren't going to be as great.
Yep. And the other thing too, with entrepreneurs and business owners is that time is a very scarce resource. And I think that's where a service like Sovereign comes in handy because you can pick from a roster of consultants to help you with specific questions or something more general if you need an overview of what Bitcoin is.
Yeah, it's an incredible company. It's we basically, we're made up of people like myself from all different parts of the country or the world coming
Hmm.
together, and we've now done the work. We put in those like thousands of hours to understand,
Yep.
a very listen, Bitcoin can be complex, especially the technicals. It's a complex subject. It's like going back to the late 1950s or 60s trying to understand TCP/IP and what that the internet base layer of the internet protocol was going to do for the world. We're still in those early.
Hmm.
I'd still say we're pretty early in the Bitcoin journey. So, but what we've done is something pulled us to Bitcoin, made us dive headfirst, put in all these hours listening to podcasts, devouring books, going to conferences, and now we're at the point where we have built a foundation where we think we can go out and really help people who need to see this information, who need to understand this information, that are on the verge of, either their business failing or just dying that slow death. We now have an army of consultants and people in different capacities that a lot of them do come from traditional finance or other unique parts of the workplace, and they're using those skills, combining them with their Bitcoin
Yeah.
knowledge, and then now we're able to implement to companies on how these strategies can really help them or even supercharge their business going forward. So
Definitely. And also, yeah, and empathize with them. Say, like I was there too. I get it. Like this doesn't make sense, but be patient. You'll
yeah,
see that it'll make sense. And the other thing too that I've witnessed personally is smart people who hear about Bitcoin, they see, the price pump, and then they hear about like, I'm going to use a recent example, Haktua or some kind of meme coin. And they're like, oh yeah, just it's like Bitcoin. And they get pulled into the scam. How do you help people? Like, how can you identify what a scam is? Or maybe you can talk about Haktua and what it was and, how people got rugged.
yeah. So I guess everyone knows that the girl's name is Haley Welch. She went
Is that her
completely.
name?
Yeah, I
Okay.
had to briefly look in. The funny thing, before we get into that, I actually
Hmm.
I just wanted to touch on my early Bitcoin journey because when like I
Hmm.
said, I had found Bitcoin through that newsletter, which actually focused on all of crypto. And in the beginning, I think it's very few people who actually come to Bitcoin that start out as Bitcoin maximalists. I think
Yeah,
most
that's true.
people dabble in the other coins, and I 100% admittedly you know, really didn't understand the difference between Bitcoin and all these other coins because when you read these in-depth newsletters, they can make these coins really seem like there's something there that's going to change the world. Like
Yeah.
they're written so well and all these like complex word salads of, blockchain. So like even a
Hold
traditional
on, pause for one
sure.
millisecond. Do you remember like a coin or one or two coins that you were like, oh yeah, this is it because the marketing and the promotions was just so compelling?
Yeah, I held, so many of these things. I don't even want to name them to give them
Okay.
life, but
Yeah,
I
that's
did.
fair. Yeah.
Yeah, but I did. I will say, Ethereum was one because that, everyone knows
Yeah.
that. That was definitely a big one that, and I would listen to the debates back and forth. But again, when we come back from thinking of how the world's been, you're thinking, oh, there was MySpace, then Facebook beat you don't understand the inner workings of why Bitcoin is different from all these things. So I
Hmm.
can definitely empathize for the people who fall for. I never fell for any meme. Even when I first in 2020, there wasn't really meme coins. It was just
Yeah.
all these competing coins, either trying to be the next Bitcoin, or saying that they were going to, change bring revolutionary change in some part of the market somehow. But yeah, so I definitely dabbled in all these things, and the more you learn, the more you devour information, you eventually get to the point where like, oh my God, I had lost a lot of Bitcoin in the beginning because in those days you had to buy Bitcoin on let's say on Coinbase or Gemini, then you had to like I had to use a VPN to access Binance and then I'm gonna cry, sell Bitcoin to buy, all these cryptos. And looking back, because all these coins collapsed against Bitcoin. Luckily, I still did very well. I still have a very good amount of Bitcoin that, it
That
could
you lost in a
potentially,
boating accident in Long
that
Island.
that is
Yeah.
now lost in a boating accident. So, but yeah, I did, and I also lost a lot of Bitcoin trading these, you know, garbage coins. And once I decided to finally sell all of that back into Bitcoin, you know, luckily I didn't get burned, but some people they lose everything, So yeah, you do got to get burned a little bit, I guess, to learn. So which will bring us back to the hawk to a coin. So yeah, this girl went viral for talking about some I guess inappropriate acts on a street corner, and and for whatever reason the world thought it was hilarious, and she went completely viral, exploded everywhere. Her face was all over the internet, and when that happens, there's always going to be opportunists that come around and will try to, I guess, cash in on someone's 15 minutes of fame or whatever. So I guess there was some people that surrounded her, and I guess convinced her to launch her own meme coin. And the problem is that as I don't think, she's just, I guess, a young girl. She doesn't have any really clue how this stuff works. So maybe they convinced her to launch a meme coin because I did look over the lawsuit, the complaint filed,
Hmm.
and I guess the gentleman's name was Alex Larson. I'm not familiar with him. They created something called the Two of the Moon Foundation. So once they convinced her to launch the meme coin, she was on her podcast or X Spaces. They were going around promoting the Hawk token, and a lot. I guess they're using her fame, building up all this hype to launch the token. What happened was eventually, I think early December, they finally launched on the Solana blockchain. I'm pretty sure, and it in those early days, this has all happened within the month of December. The market cap of that coin skyrocketed to like almost $500 million, and then within a short amount of time, it completely collapsed 90%. So
Wow.
so what I think, I don't know if you want to jump in or ask anything to this
I
point.
don't know. Well, I was gonna because 500 million and then rug pulled, and an entrepreneur is obviously going to be worried about that type of risk. So
Yeah.
I was going to ask or follow up with why can't that happen with Bitcoin? But continue the story, and I'll ask that.
Yeah, I guess yeah, we'll definitely get to that. But yeah, basically with these meme coins, what people don't understand is that you can it's you can get someone, relatively low end developer to type up some quick code to create these coins, and then you could use the Ethereum blockchain or Solana blockchain. Those are the ones that facilitate all this nonsense. You can really easily, I guess, draw up some easy code and make a billion coins, hold a bunch for yourself, and then kind of push them off to the market and profit off that. That's called seniorage, where you profit off the ability to create money. So that's what government does. But now the crypto industry, they're doing the same thing by just conjuring up their new coins from thin air. There's no real work that goes into that. It's just
Yeah.
simply putting together some, code. You control the market cap or whatever, and then you hype it up. So they use this girl's fame to hype up their coin, that they expended no real energy to create it. So
Hmm.
they made however many coins. Then they finally launched them on the Solana blockchain, and then that 500 million collapsed 90%, and within days. So what happened was a group of people got really hurt by that, and they decided to file a complaint or a lawsuit against the Two of the Moon Foundation, and they named the guy Alex Larson, and I think there was another gentleman. But basically, yeah, it was like a group of 12 to 17 plaintiffs who came together and kind of filed like a mini law class action suit against them. They didn't name Haley in the suit because I think they understand
Oh,
that.
okay.
Yes, so she actually didn't get named as defendant. I think they understand that she was just maybe manipulated, didn't really know what was going on. Because again, these crypto people, they have a real way to talk to you and convince you that what they're going to do is going to be they're insanely good at I guess at selling. So
Yeah.
so
Yep.
so they talk about all this stuff that you probably don't understand, and you get sold the lie. So yeah, she didn't get named in the lawsuit. I think they kind of knew that they just used her. So yeah, you have 12 to 17 people seeking damages from like I saw the list. You have people anywhere from like $1,000. Some guy put $70,000 into Hawkcoin. Could you imagine
Was that
taking?
his own money though, or did he
Well,
get that
yeah,
from like mommy and daddy? I
yeah,
mean,
well, yeah, no one knows for sure, but I mean, like you just see his name as a plaintiff listed with the amount lost. So you have a whole group of people who lost, 1,000, 10,000, 20,000. I'm seeing these numbers like, unless you're maybe very well off, how I can't imagine putting anything, obviously anything into these,
yeah,
but let alone 1,000, 10,000, 20,000, 70,000 into this thing. But obviously it's for pure speculation. So
yeah.
what happened was they put in that money, the token skyrocketed and then collapsed. Obviously there's going to be people in the shadows who know how to game this system. So I'm not even saying that the defendants in the suit were the ones who rug pulled, because what happens is if you don't do proper disclosure when you're going to launch something, you don't let people really understand the risks involved in that. I guess when we
Yeah.
start talking about like securities and things, we'll get to that. But yeah, that you know anything when it comes from crypto and Bitcoin, and this is something that we really have to work on as sovereign consultants, is explaining the main differences. Why something like that can't happen with Bitcoin is because one, Bitcoin requires something, called proof of work. We in the Bitcoin community understand, which, to put it simply for people to understand, is that you have to go out and put capital expenditure to buy machines to, to really put together a plan and find a way to expend a massive amount of energy to create new Bitcoin. That's what's called Bitcoin mining. So any new Bitcoin that comes to market comes from Bitcoin mining. That's one. So we knew the two differences between crypto. They can just type up some quick code and create a billion coins, no real energy expenditure. To create new Bitcoin, you would have to go through the process called mining, and put in an insane amount of work and energy expenditure just to even bring new Bitcoin supply to market. You and that's one way. But even, let's say you get a bunch of wealthy individuals that come together and they try to, maybe create a security around Bitcoin. Ultimately, Bitcoin itself is its own animal. So people can create potential securities and things around Bitcoin, but Bitcoin's such a beast that they risk just destroying themselves in the process, because they can't control the protocol, consensus rules. They can't change anything about Bitcoin. Whereas any crypto that gets spun up, these foundations, or the people involved, have complete control over any changing any of the rules, because there's no tether to the laws of physics. There's no
Yeah.
energy expenditure. They just whatever they say goes. They can tell you the world that they're not going to do this, do that. We also, what happened with Ethereum and the DAO hack, the second something comes along and you know throws a wrench in your plan. But that kind of thing cannot happen in Bitcoin because of its because how it's tethered to the laws of physics, proof of work, energy expenditure. That does not exist with anything else in the crypto industry, aside from like a few of the early Bitcoin forks that maybe still use proof of work, but obviously the market has decided which is, the real Bitcoin. But yeah, so that's, I guess, let me know if that's a good
Yeah,
explanation for.
that's a really good, and the decentralized nature of Bitcoin and Bitcoin mining. Even though I think it's two pools really dominate the space, one Chinese, one American, which I think is quite interesting.
There's definitely a lot of concern and debate that needs to be done around that.
Yeah,
But the beauty of Bitcoin is the community is so resilient and forward looking. So we're always going to have people kind of coming up with problems whenever
yeah,
Bitcoin maybe starts to get concentrated in certain areas, or there's not that anyone can control it, but definitely the mining pool issue is something that's being looked at and debated for potential solutions. Um, but I never worry too much, because I know
no,
just the mentality in Bitcoin, like there's always a solution to any problem. So when things come up, the community bands together, and even though there's a lot of infighting and debating, which is a good thing, which is how you
yeah,
keep
yep.
this, a lot of it's good. Yeah, there's always going to be issues, but I think we'll ultimately come up with ways to, overcome them. Whatever it is, whether it's quantum computing or whatever the next
Yeah.
wave of fear, uncertainty, and doubt is, we're always going to come together and find a solution. So
Yeah, the adversarial environment in Bitcoin is and again, I think that a lot of us are probably entrepreneurs, but we don't even know it because we like to we like to go out there and sharpen ourselves and to fight and to debate and to just fully understand because we are investing our own time. It's our own proof of work that's going towards this. So we need to ensure as well that, we're not just talking a good talk. And the other thing too is that I find that Bitcoiners are not the best at sales because we're so pragmatic that we don't go into the whole, this is going to change your life and you'll be rich tomorrow if you go down the Bitcoin rabbit hole.
yeah, yeah, I think one of the important things that needs to be done in Bitcoin, especially as a consultant, if we're talking to people that really don't understand or have no exposure to Bitcoin, a lot of mistakes I see people make is they go down the overly technical route trying to
Yeah.
explain Bitcoin. And you have to understand the human, I guess the human mind, like we're so distracted these days. It's really hard to bring these complex topics to someone in your initial meeting. So that's not something you really want to do. You want to give big picture overview and just give the tidbits on why this is such a superior asset to anything else. So I think I could be a very good salesman for Bitcoin.
Oh, okay,
It's
good.
it's it's when you start. trying to explain these overly technical things, and I've seen it happen. I see people, they start talking about, you know, all the technicals, and then you could just see people's eyes glaze over because it might be fascinating. It might be fascinating to us, but to someone who just really wants to understand why this is important to them or how it's going to change their life, you can't overload them with all this information at once. You have to keep it simple and hit the main topics on how it is going to uplift you in the world based on its, you know, inherent properties. So yeah, I think that's super important to tie that back to like the meme coin where we started. I think a lot of these people, they do this because they understand the money's dying. They feel it in their pocket. So
Yeah.
when the money's dying, that creates a gambling culture. I see it. I don't know how it is in Switzerland, but everywhere here in the United States, every sporting event, every uh, MMA or mixed martial arts fight, there's all these ways to gamble. You're just gambling is thrown in your face, and people are really, they may not understand why, but they inherently feel that they're not getting ahead. So everyone's looking to hit that I guess that lottery number or that,
Yeah.
you know, parlay when in regards to like sports gambling. Everyone's looking for that moonshot. So bring that over to crypto. You have all these people. Oh, this girl's super famous. I'm going to be the one who times it perfectly and gets out. No, you're not. You're going to get wrecked just like everyone else. And that's what happens. People get lured in because their lifestyle's being devalued and they're looking for a way out. And then they arrive at some, you know, charlatan talking up a meme coin. They put in an insane amount of money that should not ever be put into these things, and then they lose it all. So I looked at that lawsuit, and they're saying that their defense is that, or they're saying that they should have registered the meme coin as a security, and that they should have the reason that they bought it was because they were sold a lie on like the vision, how it's going to change crypto and all these things. But in reality, this all happened within the span of a few weeks. Okay, so
Yeah.
if you were really invested in that, it doesn't matter
Yeah.
what. It's the same as an IPO. When a
Yep.
company goes public and has an IPO, obviously the you know the price skyrockets, then it shoots down, but the real believers hold on because they believe in the
Yep.
company. Whereas these people, I think, and this is a problem with there not being any financial education in the schools, because when you have no financial base or knowledge, you don't
Yeah.
understand this world, and you if you're invested in this because of the vision on how it's going to change things, but then within a couple of weeks it skyrockets, collapses, you lose, you know, you're holding on to, you still have the tokens, but the value's gone. You lost the value of your money. But if you really believed in it, obviously you would hold on. But
Yep.
that's the thing. People, they're just looking for the moonshot. Obviously, here in the United States, we live in the most litigious society, so anyone could sue for anything. Honestly, I think that they'll probably end up settling, and maybe they'll get made whole. They're looking for rescissionary damages, which means they kind of just want the money back that they had prior to investing in the coin.
Oh, okay.
And
Yep.
so they're looking to be made whole, and they'll probably get it because you know here I don't know if you know a lot about the legal system, but the last thing you really want to do is bring it to a jury. You don't want to go through. The last thing the defendants want to do is go through discovery, because if they did rug, then that starts to come out in
Yeah.
evidence. They'll find out if they, which I don't think they did, because obviously if you get to a situation where you did have to go to court, that information would come out when they start, you know, putting all that evidence into discovery. So, but again, you're operating in a system that has no, I guess, oversight. And yeah, whales in the shadows can come in, manipulate the price, you know, bring it up, rug everyone, and then if
Yep.
you're the one who launched the coin, even if you had nothing to do with that, you're on the hook. And that's the case with this coin now. So yeah, they're suing the Hawk, or the Two of the Moon Foundation, and I guess the main face behind it. And the problem is, I mean, even if they're made whole, I hope they learn their lesson,
Mm-hmm.
because sometimes you have to get burned and not be. So we'll see what happens with that. But yeah, ultimately I think people are just looking for that lottery win.
Yep.
They don't understand what's going on or why they feel that way. But yeah, a lot of people they get kind of lured into these things.
And I like the way you refer to a lack of financial education, because the other side of that, which I hear frequently, especially with what I read coming out of the US, is this whole idea of regulation, which is like the next sort of topic. Gary Gensler is leaving soon, and you are certified with, is it FINRA and NASA?
Yeah, so I actually I relinquished all my license. I actually left traditional finance. I want to
Mm-hmm.
focus on Bitcoin full time. But even I left even way before I found Bitcoin. I actually the reasons I left was again going down the Maloney, Rickards, Kiyosaki rabbit hole. You start to understand that the traditional financial system is pretty much a scam. Like all these TradFi products, it's
Yeah.
they're all kind of riding the waves of the Fed's money printer or interest rate manipulation. So whether it's equities, bonds, real estate, I guess we'll take the big three in traditional finance. What people don't understand is the success of those assets are all based on this 40 years since like the early 80s, 40 years of declining interest rates, which obviously the easier capital is to come by, the more misallocation and waste happens. So
Yeah.
this absolutely affected the stock market, bond market, and real estate. And also with these declining rates, obviously it just makes everything super easy in the business world. So anytime there was a hiccup, whether it was the 1987 Black Monday crash or the 2001 dot-com crash, 2008 GFC, Great Financial Crisis, the Fed always steps in and kind of saves everyone. So everyone kind of gets used to, they get burned, they get wrecked, but then the Fed comes in and saves them. So you have the problem is we have all this regulation, but yet these three major collapses should have never happened. So this is kind of where I diverge with most people, where I really think there's
Mm-hmm.
there's a lot of nefarious interest going on in government, and I think a lot of these collapses are kind of engineered, like booms and busts are engineered when you have a private cartel of banks, because the Fed is not part of the government. I think most people understand that they're not part of the United States government. It's a private entity. Um, they absolutely control the cost of capital, and they have the ability to manipulate the money supply up or down. So all of that power truly affects the average person or businesses, as we talked about. But yet we have all this insane amount of regulations, yet somehow these crises and collapses still happen. So things just start to not make sense. And then if you really go into the history, Alan Greenspan, which was the head of the Federal Reserve in the late 80s up until I think around 2001, him and the people around him were the ones who actually paved the way for deregulation from the Reagan era. So that
Mm-hmm.
deregulation brought in financial derivatives. It really opened the door for the Wall Street casino that we see now through
Yeah.
derivatives. I think it was the Commodity Futures Modernization Act. So there was a ton of regulation before that from like that actually came from the Great Depression, which was also engineered by the central bankers. Again, different rabbit hole, but that's factual. And Bernanke admitted it. Ben Bernanke, one of the Fed chairman over 2008. So we're meant to think we need the regulation, but then they deregulate and allow their friends on Wall Street to, game the system with that deregulation, and then they come in and save them when they absolutely blow up the system. So it's kind of like you go back and forth, like, do we need the regulation or not? But I think I'm more of a free market kind of
Yeah.
anarcho-capitalist because I know that the regulation they have benefits, I guess, the ones with the big money, but really keeps out the true scrappy innovators from competing because they may not have access to
Yeah.
the same amount of capital to get in and compete with these. So
Or
it's
cheap capital.
or yeah,
Yeah.
or cheap, yeah, that all these big players, they have access to these zero rate uh, leverage, and if you may have a great idea, great business, but if you don't have access to that, you're
Mm-hmm.
going to be kept out because all that regulation is also it creates all this a wall that keeps you from competing. So I'm very conflicted in regulation. I think a free market regulation, which is honest actors, they're incentivized to act honestly because they want to retain customers and grow their business. You don't need regulation to do that. But in a free market, if you're, let's say, going to launch a security or a coin, you put out the disclosures of everything that we think may happen or want to happen, and all the ways you can get wrecked. Okay, that's what you
Yeah.
have to do with equities. But in
Yep.
crypto, you don't really need to do that. So that's why, a free market would say, okay, well, you're not telling me what can go wrong or the downside, so I'm just not going to invest with you. But when you don't have a
Yeah,
financial education base
yeah,
and you kind of
yeah,
don't understand, maybe regulation does help that. So I'm very torn as a free market person. I am very torn. I see the pros and cons of it, but I ultimately lean toward free market regulation, which is get the government out of the way. The bad actors are going to show who they are. People need to learn by getting burned, and the honest actors, and this applies to Bitcoin too, because there's a lot of companies within Bitcoin that
yeah,
are
yeah,
that you know what I'm saying, that also kind of operate the same way, whether it's leveraging Bitcoin or yield on Bitcoin, which completely unnecessary and obviously the fastest way to get destroyed. But yeah, if you would have had full disclosure on all the ways of the things that can go wrong, we wouldn't have, things like BlockFi and the others would have, we would have seen the potential downfalls there, which a lot of people were calling out. That's free market regulation. A lot of voices in the Bitcoin space were calling exactly how that
yep.
was going to end up, and sure enough, it did. Um, yeah, so I mean, yeah, it's kind of regulation. It's a love-hate thing. I guess you got to kind of really navigate it well and understand which regulation is meant to promote innovation and protect investors, and which
Yeah.
regulation is there kind of like to protect the elites, I guess we could call it.
Yeah. In so Switzerland is not part of the European Union, but we share borders with France, with Germany, with a few other countries.
Yep.
And the EU just released MiCA, which is like a highly like it's a proper regulation with respect to crypto and stuff. And I don't know if it'll be pulled back or repealed, or I don't know if they'll go through with it, but I'm pretty certain, especially with, this new Trump administration, I'm pretty sure that European companies will either suffer, cease to exist, or go elsewhere where the environment is a little friendlier. And of course, I'm going to ask you what your thoughts are on this new Trump administration coming in with respect to regulation and a new SEC chair, like how that would. Oh no, not SEC. It's Gary Gensler.
Yeah,
He was the chair. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. So I mean, the funny thing about Gensler is he taught the class, I guess the blockchain class at MIT, had a
Hmm.
whole series of videos, so he really understood what Bitcoin was. But the problem is, in anytime you get into, I guess, a position within government, you aren't really allowed to think for yourself. You're now engulfed by the blob, I'll call it, and what
Yeah.
you may want to do or think is the right thing to do, that all goes out the window. You have owners now. Okay, so all these
Hmm.
people, we see that they're not really the ones making business, because there's lobbyists, it's a swamp, obviously, so it doesn't matter how much he knew about Bitcoin. He has masters that really kind of lean on him and push things in a certain direction. So we could see that by when he approved the Bitcoin futures ETFs, which allows for, doesn't really protect investors because that can create a lot of manipulation around the spot price. Doesn't affect Bitcoin itself, but future all these futures products that were approved actually didn't protect investors. Okay, that actually had more of an opportunity to hurt investors with the potential for spot price manipulation. And he did everything he could to not approve the Bitcoin ETF, which finally got approved, luckily. So this allows people to, I guess, have that spot price exposure without all the the craziness, and it gives you kind of maybe a window to learn about Bitcoin before you go out and buy it yourself. At least you have exposure within your TradFi account to have
Yeah.
that spot price exposure. So yeah, Gensler, I mean, he's on his way out. He tendered his resignation, so he's going to be out pretty soon. I think that and the Democratic administration, they're very anti-crypto. They're just against Bitcoin in pretty much every way you can think about. The new administration is definitely more open to Bitcoin, but I see a lot of potential for the very crypto heavy too. The way I guess the president uh, he's launched, I think, coins before. So I don't think it's gonna. I mean, they are doing a lot of rhetoric around Bitcoin. I think it's a net good, but I think people need to ultimately, if you're in the Bitcoin space, you need to ultimately remember what we're here for, and that's separate money and state.
Hmm.
They can't co-opt Bitcoin itself, but they can definitely start to build these regulatory moats around it and kind of push you in a way, kind of dictate how you use it. And we need to be very cognizant of that because, a lot of people they cheer on the strategic reserve, and again, we can't control what someone does with Bitcoin. We can't control what government's going to do or what someone personally does with Bitcoin. But a lot of these things can create these layers of, I guess they can kind of peel back the freedom parts, the most freedom-based parts of Bitcoin within laws and all these,
Yeah.
regulations. So we need to be very careful of how much we cheer on and embrace the
Yep.
government. But that's the beauty of Bitcoin. In its pure form, it can be used however you see fit.
Yep.
So
And
it's
it's for enemies. It's for
it's
anyone.
for anyone can use it. So yeah, so I definitely think the new administration, it's a net positive, but you'll never. I'm pretty. Listen, in my I guess personal capacity outside of like consultant, I'm very. Let's just say I'm not a fan of government, and I'm not a fan of
Yep.
a lot of things. We'll just keep it at that. But obviously, in the business world, you kind of have to meet people where they are, and so yeah, I think the new administration ultimately is good for Bitcoin, but not I won't give them any credit to say that they have anything to do with, Bitcoin itself. They can bring more awareness by, having Trump speak at the Bitcoin conference. Awareness, it's out in the open. So my hope is that it brings the awareness and people, I guess, the ones who haven't been sold yet, they see that, I guess they seek that validation from like big names or government
Yep.
people talking about it. Then maybe they'll go down the rabbit hole and kind of be led to where we are. So it's good for awareness. It's definitely good for you
It's
know,
better
for
better than the
global
previous
adoption.
administration.
Yeah, yeah. The previous administration, and I don't vote. I'm very again. I don't. I've never. I've only. I'm 35. Only voted once in my life. Uh, so yeah, I don't vote. I don't participate in government. I know too much about government, how the world works, to really spend any time in that world. But let's just say, for the sake of keeping it professional, yeah, I think ultimately it's very good for awareness. I just hope people
Yeah.
don't take what they say at face value and they go down the proper Bitcoin rabbit hole and kind of through podcasts and books really understand what it's about as opposed to like, oh, the US is going to put it, use it as a strategic reserve to bring us closer to, potential kinetic wars with other countries. You know what I'm saying? Like there's a lot there that would be a whole other podcast that I could talk about, but
Yeah.
we'll keep it at that for now.
Okay. I personally am hopeful. Like I think I saw a clip, I think it was Cynthia Loomis mentioning she's a politician, but she mentioned this and I think it's good to put it out in the universe. She mentioned what would it be like if, the US, China, Russia are in a sound money race as opposed to like a nuclear race or an arms race. And I think that that's, like it's good to have that out there, as opposed to just, these hot wars all the time.
Yeah, I mean, definitely. All these, let's say, all these nation states. The problem is because of what I know, I know that these, whether it's the U.S. or these BRIC nations, they're never going to give up their power, their control of the
Hmm.
money. And believe me, it's not that they're dumb and we just magically arrived at this system of central banking, which is the whole world operates
Yeah.
under a central bank. We people think that they're different, whether it's the Fed, the ECB or the BOJ, Bank of Japan, whatever. They think there's differences, but ultimately there are the central banking industry controls this planet and they control the politicians. They're never going to easily give up
Yeah.
their control over money. So yeah, I think like having voices in politics like Cynthia and others kind of bring that awareness around. I think the key is for that awareness to penetrate the human race, people going down the proper rabbit holes, and then when it gets so big, it doesn't matter what government does. We
Yeah.
end up outnumbering them in how we decide we want to use Bitcoin. You know what I mean? Because if people rely too much on, I guess, governments wherever they are, using it to kind of battle each other and whatnot, you can get to points where if it becomes very prominent, then they may try and restrict us from using it. So we have to make sure we understand, uh, the proper ways to use Bitcoin and kind of like make sure we don't give too much of the power away because it's the same concept as a constitution. It's consensus rules of how a country should be run. But when you let government do what it wants, all of a sudden that brilliant piece of paper that protect so many
Yeah.
natural unalienable rights that we should have, they build all these moats around it, and the next thing you know, 100 years goes by and you're in a completely different country per se. So it's the same with Bitcoin. You
Yeah.
have the consensus rules. You let too much manipulation and other things be built around that, you get away from the initial, I guess, use case for it. So
I feel like because I've had the good fortune of interviewing people from many different continents, and I feel as though in the US and other Western countries, there's already a mechanism, a government mechanism in place that prevents people from using Bitcoin as a medium of exchange. So in the US, it's the capital gains tax. From what I understand, if you get a haircut and you pay for that haircut with Bitcoin, that is technically a taxable event.
yeah,
So it kind of incentivizes Americans to only see Bitcoin as a store of value.
and that's what I'm talking. That's basically what I'm talking about is how when government comes in and all these big players come in, they're going to start dictating, they're going to start shaping perception, and they're going to start putting in rules and ways that they want. They can't stop Bitcoin, so they have to know how to navigate it while keeping them in power. So that's what they do. They start implementing, capital gains tax or taxable events anytime you spend Bitcoin, when Bitcoin in its pure form isn't meant for that. So you kind of have to, and it does. It incentivizes us here in the West to see it as an asset, which here in the West it does make sense as an asset because of the U.S.'s
Hmm.
dollar reserve currency status. So here it actually doesn't make sense to do that. But if in other parts of the world, it absolutely makes sense to use it as money or as currency, because you're not going to be hit with, someone in Nigeria using it isn't going to be hit with a taxable event. You know what I'm saying? So that's the beauty of Bitcoin, is in its pure form could be used how you see fit anywhere in the world. The good thing about here in the U.S. is there's still a very good body of law protecting. You still actually have uh, all the rights that this country was founded on, but you have to know how to access them. This is a misconception, is that you can't. What I'm trying to say is basically you can use Bitcoin the way it's without having to.
Okay, I get it.
You can you can use Bitcoin as you see fit if you understand the laws and how to litigate in the case that they come after you. All the original Constitution is still there. The Bill of Rights is still there. The big misconception that people have is that capital gains and all this nonsense applies to them in their private capacity. And again, another rabbit hole, different podcast. But I just want to say there's always a solution, no matter what government does. Especially so, like the U.S. is kind of like that last bastion of like freedom because that body of law still exists. It's just insanely suppressed and hidden, whereas most people kind of default to needing to hire an attorney and they're at the mercy of the bar cards and that whole system. When in reality, here in the you can actually, this is something that I've done, is I'm learning how to be an attorney. In fact, how to, if I need to litigate or go after people or in, let's say, government for encroaching on rights, such as mandates and things like that, you have remedy. Okay, so that's my hope being here, and actually I know most of the world has similar laws because a lot of the governments of the world, they're based on their commerce laws or the Uniform Commercial Code. So every country has their own version of this. This is how we do business with countries. A lot of the what we think are legal laws are actually based on the same commerce laws. So most people in a lot of, I guess, Western nations at least, do have remedy. It's just hidden, and you have to go out and find it. So you merge that with this technology, Bitcoin, and then knowledge of how to use Bitcoin as you see fit. You can separate yourself from whatever government tries to do. And I know this might be like new information. You may have not heard this before. But this is definitely another rabbit hole that I've been down, and it is real and it does exist. So I don't worry too much about what government does. What I do worry about is what they do, and people that don't understand that.
Yeah.
It and Bitcoin does end up getting kind of co-opted with unfavorable regulations or laws. So is
That's
definitely
another
something.
value add for a
Yeah.
business that, seeks out
Absolutely.
your consulting advice. Yep.
Yeah, in a business capacity, you can operate a business as a private irrevocable trust, or you could go to the government and get, their permission with an LLC corporation. Again, this is way different than a lot of people have no idea about this stuff, but you can operate in business, in commerce, privately or publicly. So
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, obviously everyone has to make a choice on how they want to operate. The 99.9% of people go through LLCs and the like, but you can operate as a private trust outside of the traditional rules of government, just assuming you follow natural law. You don't swindle anyone, don't lie. You know,
Yeah.
injured parties obviously will always be able to have remedy against you. It's not like you're operating on the purest form of law. Okay, so that's something. So I think this is super important for as we merge Bitcoin and business, because an LLC or corporation type, if the government goes and changes laws on how you can use Bitcoin, you're kind of be held to those. But
Hmm.
if you maybe restructure your business to operate privately, having all the same access to the same markets you would as if you were in the public, let's say you decide you want to use Bitcoin, spend Bitcoin, you don't have to incur, any of the typical, I guess, hurdles that come with being in the public. So that's definitely something. I'm not fully ready to, bring that to the table yet, but it's something that exists. It's very real, and it's very exciting type information that can be very useful for people, because yeah, government's never going to make. I don't think, again, the new administration will be favorable, but I will never, believe that any government on any party, any side, is going to just allow us to get relinquish control of the money and allow us to use it as we see fit,
Yeah.
which is what Bitcoin is designed to do, to bring the ultimate freedom to the human race. I don't ever believe government's going to do that. I don't. There's going to be good people in government that talk about it, but as a whole, that blob, the power to control the money through central banks and government itself, they're able to dictate everything, and losing that control, it's their worst nightmare. So yeah, I think we definitely got to navigate that pretty carefully as Bitcoin just grows and grows, and that we're seeing it on that global stage now.
Yeah.
Presidents talking about it, nation states adopting. So yeah, definitely exciting times, but we got to, as a Bitcoiner, you got to be vigilant. You got to be always, ready to you know, see what they're trying to pull, and ready to fight back, or embrace whatever the case may be.
Awesome. Well, we've been recording for an hour. This is the first part because you're going to answer 21 questions in the
Yeah.
next part. And obviously, when you are ready to share more information about what you mentioned earlier, I would love to have you back to learn about this, because I have to admit that I'm rebellious, but I still work within, the framework
Yeah,
that I'm aware of. So
that
this is
that
opening
that's
me to something new.
yeah, absolutely, definitely something that I got to be very adamant about is everything I say and do is within the law.
Hmm.
What I'm trying to explain here is that the law is there. It's hidden under layers and layers of
Yeah,
books and law libraries, and it's there. It's like they have it there, but they know 99% of people aren't ever going to go and look there.
exactly.
So people just default to like
Yeah.
what they know. So yeah, definitely exciting rabbit hole, and hopeful rabbit hole. But you have to really know what you're doing to make sure you are within the law. So that's one thing I'll say is I'll never. It may sound kind of I am rebellious, for sure, but I will always do everything within the lines, if
Yeah.
that makes sense.
Yeah, yeah,
So
totally.
anything I talk about, it's because it's backed by law, not, So it's not. I'm not making it up. It's all within the law. You just have to know how to access those very hidden corners of the law. So
Of course. And Ed, where can people find you?
yeah, I mean, I'm kind of anon on X, so
Okay, yeah,
you definitely want to keep
that's
that
cool.
kind of separate from Sovereign. But yeah, you can find me on LinkedIn, my name, and under Sovereign, or you could find me on the Sovereign website, sovereign.io. But yeah, the socials I kind of keep
Yeah,
separate.
smart. Very
Yeah.
smart.
Yeah. Man like quite. Man like who? Yeah. Takes her Bitcoin off exchanges under self-custody. She runs her own node, providing liquidity. Yeah, she got her own keys. She got her own keys. She got her own keys. Yeah, she got her own keys. 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 Yeah, she got her own keys.